Good morning. So I had to make some face masks this morning, some fabric face masks, and I had a little bit of extra time. So I thought that I would do some more work on Marvin and thought I would just sort of live stream it because why not? So last time we worked on the helmet, the base helmet. So we got our gesso on there. I started doing some sanding. So that's smoothing out and being coming along nicely. The paint is all dried for the brush top, which is this. So you can see I haven't done another coat of paint on the inside yet, but I did some sanding on the outside so I could do my final layer or two. I had a couple of spots where it wasn't smooth as I wanted it. So not a big deal. That's easy enough to do. But today what I want to work on is countersinking the magnets that I use to hold the helmet together. So the base helmet is all one piece. And then I have the visor, which has magnets on the under pieces, and there are magnets inside the helmet. So what I'm gonna do, this is my faceplate, and so I actually measured it two different ways. So this was when the faceplate was turned basically inside out, and then this one is when it's right side out. So the closer to the edge is going to be better for getting it, because basically what it's going to do is spread out a bit to get the actual shape that we want, a little less oblong and a little more round. So I am going to show y'all what works for me. These magnets are an inch, a little over an inch in diameter. So I had picked up a 2-inch drill bit piece for the Dremel, but it was too big, and trying to cut it down and all of that, I figured I'd just try and do it a little bit more the old-fashioned way. So I cut myself a piece of sandpaper to the same size as the magnet, and then what I'm going to do is use my handy dandy X-Acto knife and the blade that is not designed for this knife at all, but that's okay. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this outer circle here and basically just go around, and then I will cut a plus sign in the middle so I can quarter it, and then I'm going to pull the foam out and just sort of tear it very slowly and not make too shallow of a cut to start with. And what that's going to do is basically get me a start for my sanding. So I'm not sanding the entire time through all this foam, because the sandpaper is it's an 80, maybe it's a 180. Which one is this? It's an 80. Yeah, it's an 80 grit. So it will get through the foam, but because it is just paper, that while it's spinning in the rotation, it doesn't have anything to keep it straight. So you can see it's a little bit curved. So instead of trying to build some sort of apparatus, and I couldn't find any bits that were the same size that I needed, so we're just going to make do. So I'm gonna turn this down here. There we go. So this is the left side. So I'm gonna start, and I'm going to run my blade around this line on the inside, because I traced the magnet outline. So I'm just putting just the lightest amount of pressure on it. It's basically like scoring it. So when you score something, you're not cutting all the way through. And that's what I'm doing here, because I don't want it to go all the way through the faceplate. I just want it to be deep enough that the magnet's not going through 10 millimeters of foam, but maybe 4 or 5 instead. And then cut a little plus sign or an X, depending on your perspective. So I don't know if that y'all can see that at all or not, but hard to tell. But that's what I did. So now I've got 4 little wedges. And then what I'm gonna do is just taking just my finger and start peeling it away at this corner, and just pull out a little piece. And I'm gonna do that all the way around. What it does is it sort of makes a little, almost like a little mountain in the middle, because we cut from the outside, right? And then I will take the sander and then sand it until it is flat. And again, you don't want to go too deep with this because you don't want to lose all that thickness. And there's probably a better technique, especially if you're using a thinner foam, but we are using 10 millimeter for this project. And it also won't matter if it's not perfectly flat, as long as I can get it to be flush with the faceplate itself. That's really what I'm going for. Like I said, I'm sure there's probably a better solution to it, but this one seems to work pretty well for me. So I thought I would share it with you. Okay. There we go. So now we've got this little mountain thing here going on. We've got this circle around the outside. So the next thing is and take my Dremel tool. I use it on low because I'm a scaredy cat. And I'm going to hold it straight up and down. See, terrifying. So, as you can see, it's already started smoothing it down. And it takes a little while. It doesn't take too terribly long. A lot less than if it was just sanding, that's for sure. All right. All right. So I tried to be brave for y'all and go up in that speed. So let's grab a magnet and see how close we are. I store it on the microphone stand because it's far away from literally everything. So these magnets, these are the Great Mag brand here. And yeah, 1.26 inches. So they come, you can see I've already used some. They come with these little plastic separators because these things are so strong. So to separate them, slide it off of the plastic. And then what I do is put the magnet back in the container so that if something goes wrong, I don't have, so I lost a magnet, I found it later, but this way I can sort of control where they are. So I'm gonna put it here and see, it's still raised up a little bit, so I'm gonna do a little bit more to get it flat. And And make sure that my metal X-Acto knife is very far away from my metal magnet. That's looking pretty flush. It is on a curve, so it's not going to be perfect. We could probably go a little bit longer. Yeah, let's go a little bit longer. The more flush it is, the thinner the material is between this and the other magnet. So to get as strong as possible without making it impossible to get it apart. Awesome. That's exactly how I wanted it. So we're gonna super glue it in, but before we do that, we wanna check and make sure we've got it going the right direction. So I'm going to put my magnet in my helmet or in the faceplate so that it's not near anything metallic because I will never give it off. These are, see, yeah, these are neodymium disc magnets. I'm afraid to get it too close to my phone. That just makes me feel better. All right, so I've got the helmet here. So what I'm going to do is lay the helmet kind of flat so you can see where the magnet is. Where'd it go? Right there. And this is actually going to be on the other side, but there we go. And then we're going to take the faceplate and it fits like so. So I'm going to take my magnet. I had it in my shirt pocket there, and figure out which direction it wants to be. So this is it. Ooh, very strong. Okay. So I'm going to set this helmet down to the side and keep it in the right position. And so these magnets come with these little 3M discs, which are great if you want to hang it in your kitchen for your fancy knives, but they do not hold on the foam. So I have been using super glue, which has been holding amazingly. I like the gel because it doesn't go everywhere, and so we're just going to go ahead, and you can see I've been using this already on this project because it's covered in that dust. So I'm going to take the super glue and just get some of that gel out there and then put it all over. And some of this is going to dry and it's never going to make contact with the magnet, and that's okay. I'd rather have too much than not enough. And now take the magnet in the same position that we had it and sort of press it in there, and we will let it sit. So now we can go over and do the same thing on the other side. And for super sneaky, making sure it dries in the right position and doesn't move, I can take another magnet. Ow. See, it wasn't even close, and it just pulled that magnet up there and pinched my poor little finger. Okay. All right, yes, we know. So all I'm doing is sticking another magnet on the back side of this, and that's gonna pull it a little bit tighter and help it to stay in place while it's drying, so we can work on the other side. And hopefully it doesn't pull to any of the other metal things I've got sitting around on my table. There are different sizes of these magnets. There's also some that are bar shaped instead of circular. So the circular ones were perfect for this project. I'm already looking at what to do for assuming that there is a convention season next year. And so I have some medical issues and would be wearing a mask anyway at a convention. And so we're looking at costumes that we could potentially do to incorporate masks or incorporate a 6-foot distance. So possibly some large armor or, head dresses that extend like like Hela from Thor, where she's got the large headdress sticking out. Maybe giant wings, something to make people stay away from me. So again, I cut around the inside of the silver circle where I traced the magnet and did a little X or a plus sign, depending on how you look at it. And I'm just gonna pull away the foam from the cut that I made. And it was a light pressure cut because we're not going all the way through. These magnets are so strong that if you put two of them next to each other, I spent maybe an hour trying to separate the magnets. Now that was with no leverage or anything like that. It was just two of the discs on top of each other. So you may have better luck. And I'm sort of peeling towards the middle because again, I don't want it to pull and end up pulling it all the way through. Let's see if we can get any of this middle down a little bit lower before we start. And the good news is that by the time we're done getting all this done, that this one will be dry and I can just use this magnet for the other side. That helped a little bit. Yeah, that's already really close. So. There we go. Yeah, cutting that middle piece out definitely made it go faster. Thanks for the suggestion that you were thinking. All right, so I put the magnet back in my shirt pocket. We bring our helmet back up. All right, so this is on this side, like so. And then it should balance it out on the other side while stretching our foam. There it is. There we go. So this is what it ends up, and we'll glue that magnet in, but I just wanted to show y'all. And then it should be easier to put on with the magnets than trying to shove your head up in here. So take this out, like so. That was a little bit high, but should still work. All right. Well, in that case, we want to double check and make sure that it's going to sit properly. So let's try this again. All right, so this one is good and strong. So what I'm gonna do is take my handy dandy silver Sharpie, and it's gonna be kind of hard to see, but basically it didn't get the magnet placement quite right the first time. There, you can kind of see it. It's sort of halfway between my two. So I'm gonna trace around where the magnet is sitting right now and cut out a spot so that it'll be that same thin layer. Which is the other reason to do it on the inside so it doesn't show. There we go. So I traced that new spot. I'm going to take this magnet out because it's the loose one. Very good. Very good hold. That's exciting. I'm going to stick it back here so I don't lose it or stick it to something else. So here's my modified mark. So the helmet itself is not perfectly round, you know, there's little variations in the foam itself. So all sorts of reasons why it wouldn't be exactly the same placement on both sides, but that's okay. Yeah. And we only have to cut this little crescent bit now because we've already, so I'll do do some pie slices, since we already have part of it. Cool. All right. So same as before. And at least for me, it's a lot of trial and error sometimes. And that's, you know, with the stuff like the sewing, I had a very good class in college for costuming. And this is much more, I watched some YouTube videos and so I get my YouTube degree instead. I did have a, I used to LARP, which is live action role playing. And so I used to make props for that to decorate the cabin. It was a sleepaway for the weekend. And I almost got a job because of the LARP. I would have had a job, but I wouldn't have finished school, and my mother would not have spoken to me again if I had done that. Alright, let's see. Yeah, so the I had made a, yes, okay, good. So we'll double check the placement one more time, and then that should be good to glue into that second piece, or the second location. So yeah, I had made a little display thing for some plastic vials, because I was playing a character that used potions and poisons. And so I was a poor college student. And so I used a tissue box, like a Kleenex box, and covered it in masking tape, and then did a wood grain paint on it and cut little crisscrosses in the top so that I could push the pieces in the plastic tubes into the see, now it wants to go back over there. Oh, well, why didn't y'all tell me that I had it all weird? Yeah, so little crisscrosses to push the little vials so I could pull them in and out. And the vials were plastic vials that I put green food coloring in the liquids because they were supposed to be poisons. And so there was this theater company that was looking for, yes, okay, that is what we want. That is beautiful. I know y'all are crooked, I'm sorry. Let's see if that helps. That did not help at all. But here we go. Oh, so excited. So this theater company came to school, and I was a technical theater major in college with an art minor after trying to be a computer scientist and realizing math is really hard for me. So this theater company came, and they were hiring basically internships for the summer. And so I brought in my little tissue box stand along with some other things that I had made for the game, and they actually offered me an apprenticeship, but it was for the spring, and I was one semester away from graduating. And the summer program was something different, and it was an unpaid apprenticeship. I mean, they had housing for me, but that was about it. And so it was not a thing that I was in a position to do. But I do like to remind myself sometimes that I almost got a job from a tissue box covered in masking tape. So, all right, so I'm going to do the same thing that I did before, where I'm going to put a magnet on the other side to pull it in, because that makes it much more snug. There we go. So there's our gel and our super glue holding that in. So now our faceplate is all set and magneted up so we can stick it into the helmet itself. And so let's see what else we got. We need to do some more painting. I think the visor is good. Let's go for the broom handle, or the broom head rather, because it's small. And we've got a little bit of time before the day job. There we go. So we're just gonna let this glue dry over here. I did get batteries to put into the, oh, well, that was dumb. Let's see if it still works. It does! That's exciting. So, here is the LED eyes that are gonna go on the outside of the faceplate, and then there will be eye holes. The eye holes are gonna be hidden by the black power mesh. So this is what they look like when they're not lit up, and then this is white eyes, and then we've got our angry eyes for later. I'm very excited about this. I was thinking about how to attach these last night, and I'm thinking that what I may do is cut some small pieces of Velcro, and then you can just stick the Velcro on there. And that, because I already had them cut, I didn't want to test with the magnets, although I've got to be careful because I just had this magnet on top of my battery pack. So I have to pay super close attention to where I'm putting everything. But that's fine. It's all fine. So we've got, let's go ahead and do our broom side since we're here. I know, it's a mess. All right, so got my little brush, and this is the brown from the Home Depot to match the color in the picture. Very excited. I'm gonna try and only get paint on my hands and my skin, and not on my clothes. We'll see. Probably not going to succeed. It's a nice chilly day here in Georgia. They are telling us we might have snow for Christmas, and it sounds a lot nicer than it is around here. It probably won't stick, or if it does, it'll be just on like the leaves and the trees and the decks that are not on the ground itself. But usually when it snows around here, it turns into ice really fast. And ice is not cute. Or fun to drive in, or really fun to look at. Throwing wads of ice at people is not the same effect as throwing wads of snow. But you never can tell. I moved to the south to get away from the snow. So, not thrilled, but, you know. The weather doesn't listen to what I want. This gets sunk into the helmet a little bit because what I ended up doing was at first I had a magnet on the top, but it was so strong that I was afraid I was going to rip out the foam when I was pulling the broom head out. So I ended up cutting all the way through the top of the helmet and putting a magnet underneath and putting a couple of layers of foam between the magnet and the hole. So this is definitely, it gets countersunk even more. But I'd rather go ahead and paint all the way down to the magnet than have some of that gesso showing. Some nice thick application on there, and then we'll let it dry. And we're also gonna do, so not only is but we're gonna do the sides and the top here brown as well. So this is a lot easier to manage, painting the bottom part of it, because there's so much of the like big bristles to hold. So I'm just using the very edge, like the sort of triangle edge, beveled edge maybe? I don't know if it's technically beveled, to go along. Now this is actually made out of the thinner foam that I used the first time. So I'll show you in just a minute the width difference, which you wouldn't think would be a big deal, but turns out. Now this is not weight supporting, so I didn't feel like I needed to remake it because it looks really good. But I did remake the faceplate and the helmet out of the thicker foam. Starting to look like a Warner Brothers brush. It's Warner Brothers, right? Yeah. So I went all the way around, and then the last bit is gonna be, trying to figure out how to hold it. So I'm gonna leverage the shape of my brush again and just try and go just right up to the edge of this yellow. Now, if I was smart, I would have taped it, but I get excited and forget to do things like that. And what I'll do is, with this little bit here, I'll go in with a really fine brush to get that little corner area. And mostly what I'm trying to do is prevent getting the brown onto the top part of the yellow as much as possible. It's always easy to go darker, but it's difficult to try and cover a dark color with a light color once it's on there. Well, see, I got too excited. So I'll see if I can cover that up. You have a little bit of curving at the foam. There we go. All right, so now we've got our two main colors down. I'm real excited about it. Obviously, we're gonna wanna do some additional coats, and trying to make life a little easier on myself here, and just sort of thinning out the paint a little bit so I have fewer big streaks to try and work through. Because you can always put on more coats, which is really true of life in general. Alright, I'm going to set it down like so. Also, the thinner the coat, the faster it dries. And this dries pretty quickly, being house paint. So, y'all didn't tell me I missed a spot. Well, all right. So, now we've got that in its first coat. We'll set our paint aside and we'll wash our brush later. And move this very serious. So here is our brush. You'll get a couple other coats, but this is basically the color. And this is our inspiration picture. So the picture looks a little more golden, but with the brown part, but I think it's a pretty good match. I'm pleased with that. Always fun when the color starts appearing. So this is the 10 millimeter thickness here is compared to, I want to say that I did like 3, which was just a bad choice on my part. So, just for a reference of what that looks like. So, now let's see. What do you want to do next? Got a little bit of time. Let's try putting a coat of the green on the visor. See how that turns out for us. Right, this is the green, and I got it to match. Anybody would like to know the specific color components, I can tell you what's on the label there. All right, try and keep everything away from everything. And we get our big boy brush. This is a 3-inch foam brush. And let's take a look. Very exciting. Ooh, look at that. Yeah, this is way better than the bristle brush was already. So pretty. And the gesso is doing an awesome job of holding that paint too. I wasn't really concerned, but I don't work a lot with gesso these days, so, and I don't think I've ever used house paint with gesso. Let's see how much of a mess I can make today. And then my plan is, once this is all done, that I have a gloss that I'm gonna put on top of it. So that should make it nice and shiny and should fill in any of those additional imperfections after a couple of coats. I did something similar. I made a mask for Cheshire from DC Comics, and I was basing her off of the I was doing the Young Justice costume version. So I made her mask out of paper mache and craft foam, like craft wire. I'm so excited, y'all. In fact, I am so excited. Get you up here to dry. That I'm gonna go ahead and start painting the big helmet. I think that will help. So there was I sent a picture to the customer because I am doing a commission here, and sent her a picture, sort of a for size, because she wanted to see the size of it, and she was afraid it was too big. And I think that because the inside is black and I am small and just the outside being white, I think it's giving this optical illusion, because it is a large helmet, but it's not, I don't think it's too large personally. Also, I kind of wouldn't want to remake it if that was the case. But edge to edge, it's 15.5 inches. So that's not, I think it just looked bigger because of all the colors playing tricks. So let's just go in here with this paint and see what we can do about all of that. We'll definitely have to paint this in stages because of its propensity for falling over. When it's not all assembled. But all assembled, it seems to be really well balanced. Which is something I probably should have checked before I started painting. But here we are. Full contact craft. That is me. sides, it feels much more accomplished to actually get some color on this thing finally. And so much easier to paint it with it being modular. The first version that I did, I attached the visor and then tried to paint it all, and then I couldn't get paint all the way to the edges that I wanted. So this is much easier to paint all the pieces and then have them be able to go together. And it should be enough with the gloss will seal the paint, so the paint should not chip with any sort of overuse by putting the magnets on and off. Put a little thing there just to be safe. But I do feel like we're in the home stretch for the helmet. And then all that's left is giant shoes, which I have never made and have been looking up all sorts of tutorials on. And it looks like they shouldn't be too giant, just bigger than normal human feet. So my customer sent me a pair of comfy shoes to be sacrificed to the cosplay gods, because once they're in that, they are never leaving again. So that will be fun to sort of figure out. And now I have green paint on my carpet. That's fine. It's part of the reason I have my own sewing cosplay studio, so that I can stain the carpet and not have to worry about it. It's already such a huge difference just getting this first layer of green on there. It really does bring it closer to what it's supposed to look like. But also, I really do think that those colors are playing tricks on making it look bigger than it actually is. And it's already starting to dry in some of these spots. Look at that, y'all, so pretty. That's why I brought a coffee cup with a lid, because I almost dipped my brush into my tea. And this is not even a watercolor situation where you would be dipping your brush into water and getting that confused. See if I can do this. Okay. Still gonna tip a little bit, but at least this way I can sort of see it. So there's this whole spot here in the back of the helmet. I'm trying to not get green all over everything I own, just most of it. Was almost a disaster as I tried to move that paint can and it hit a bump in my cardboard cutting board and almost had paint everywhere. And last time on the previous helmet, I also put it up on my microphone stand to paint it, and I think that was too much pressure on the center seam because it was starting to come apart. So this time I'm just going to paint it flat, or as close to flat as we can get here. So when it dries, I will turn it on the front so that I can paint the bottom. this. I just painted my own hand, so you know that is how we roll around here. Let me try, see what I can do here. Oh dear. I have a tablet down here for the next thing, which is to get the projector set up. But I have a bit of that shiny object syndrome where I want to go onto the new thing before I finish the first thing. So I'm trying to be really good about finishing this project first. I'm pretty sure, yep, I've got green on my face. All right. So I saw I missed a spot there or rubbed up against something. Either is possible. So the good news is I don't have green on my broom, which is really what I was afraid of, is that I was going to get green all over that. So that's good. I am glad I went with the bigger can of paint for the green. I was afraid, so I got the tester sizes for the yellow and the brown because I knew I wasn't going to be using much of it. And I almost got a tester size for the green, but I figured that I could give myself some latitude for if I needed to remake it, for example. So, very grateful for past me being smart about that. All right. Got our edges here. So I covered the edges in the joint compound, but I did not cover the edges in paper mache. So the paper mache actually just goes up to the edge. And then these thinner edges here are actually just joint compound and gesso to make everything a little bit more smooth and cohesive looking. Okay. Looks like it's got most of it. All right, so now I'm gonna get these little guys here. Just don't want to forget about that. And here. Awesome. That looks like a pretty decent first coat there. Got a couple of spots where it's thinner than others, but that's not a huge deal. Let's check our visor. It's still wet, but so here's the visor. The shiny spots are where it's still wet paint, but you can see some of it's already dried pretty quickly. So that's very exciting. I'm very excited. And yeah, some of these spots look really good. All right, I'm excited about this. Okay. So it is about that time where I have to go for get ready for going to the day job. I did want to show y'all the our finished product here. Here we are right now. So there is the helmet in its mostly painted glory. And there's the brush. It sort of blends in with my wall back there. And then there's our faceplate with our magnets. And there is our visor. And that mask right there is paper mache and wiring with some padding on the nose for good measure. So now that you've seen my very messy room, I want to thank you for stopping by, and I will see you next time. Bye.